Now that I have the Amazon exclusive Batman and Batmobile Gold Label 2-pack, I can safely say that this is both the best and the worst that McFarlane Toys has done with their DC license so far. I'll explain why on this episode of Geek Dad Life. Starting in 1994, after Todd McFarlane couldn't get a partnership with Mattel to work on the creation of Spawn figures, Todd Toys, yes, that was McFarlane Toys' original name, changed how action figures were designed and looked, for better or worse, for the next decade. 1994 was also the last year of the Keaton era of Batman toys, with Series 2 of Batman Begins figures hitting toy shelves. And while there hasn't been any shortage of Batman toys on shelves since the Batmania of 1989, there have been very few Keaton Batman figures. A 4-inch scale Mattel figure here, a NECA figure there, a couple expensive Hot Toys, and that's about it. That is until this past year with Keaton's triumphant return to the Batman role in the box office flop, The Flash. Issues with Ezra Miller aside, I really enjoyed the film and thought Michael Keaton did a great job donning the cape and cowl one more time. Spin Masters made a few fun but not particularly accurate Keaton Bat figures, and that brings us back to Todd Toys. I'm sorry, McFarlane Toys. Since McFarlane got the DC license and started giving us DC figures in 2020, he has brought a non-stop barrage of Batman toys. The deluge of Batman figures over so many other DC characters with McFarlane has been a fair critique. But with Keaton's return to the Batman role, that should mean we could finally get a ton of Keaton Bats, right? Well, not really. We got a normal retail release, and a Chase Unmasked variant that looks more like Ray Liotta than Keaton, and a larger quote-unquote statue version of the old Keaton Bats. We also got a new version of the Batwing, which is a tad bit overpriced and an online exclusive, as well as a hard-to-find and flawed 89 style Batmobile. I personally never saw one at retail, but after seeing the discolored canopy, I decided to pass. Then finally McFarlane announced the figure we wanted all along, an 89 style Keaton Bats package with a presumably fixed Batmobile. Yay, right? Not quite. For some reason this set, which a ton of toy collectors wanted, would be a limited Amazon exclusive. Unshockingly, it was an instant sellout, and like a lot of Amazon pre-orders, a lot of people's sets are still in delayed limbo or were outright canceled. I wasn't able to secure one before it sold out, but thankfully GDL community member Quip got one, then decided he didn't want it and let me buy it from him. So thank you, Quip. Funny enough, with this specific set, Amazon had decided to ship it without its protective shipper box, and unshockingly, the box is beat up. I've had this happen before with Amazon exclusives. Luckily, I guess the packaging for the set is super boring, so as long as the Batman and Batmobile were safe inside, I didn't care how much the boring packaging was beat up on the outside. Once out of the box, I was immediately blown away by this set. Starting with the Batmobile, they nailed the execution on this one. It has an even matte black finish throughout, and it doesn't have that weird gray discoloring on the canopy. It doesn't have a ton of paint apps, but the ones that are there are clean and crisp and look great. It does feel fairly light, like a hollow piece of plastic, but for the price of the set and how it looks in hand, that doesn't bother me too much. Something that makes this Batmobile not 100% screen accurate is the fact that it is a one-seater, when we all know in real life it's a two-seater. There is precedent for this, with Kenner scaling down their 89 Batmobile to a one-seater as well. I thought it would bug me or look off in this larger scale, but honestly, taking the whole thing in, I think it looks fantastic. And I think it would look great with some of the other 12th scale vehicles that we're getting, like the Party Wagon or the Tomy DeLorean. And out of those iconic 80s vehicles that we're getting, this will easily be the cheapest. And because of that, I think this Batmobile is a must-buy if you love this version of Batman's iconic ride and want it in 12th scale. Moving on to the Batman figure, while it's not perfect, I think it's the best collector action figure version of the 89 Batman we've gotten so far. Now, anyone's biggest critique against this figure will be about its accuracy, and yes, it isn't super accurate, but where it succeeds is in its capturing the spirit of the Keaton Batsuit. Case in point, I have the 6-inch scale NECA Keaton Bats, which did a great job giving us a more accurate Batsuit. And to my eye, when you put the new one next to the old NECA one, I think the McFarlane one looks better. If you want the most accurate version of Keaton in that iconic 89 Batsuit, you should get the Hot Toy. That thing is incredible. I've owned the first release of it for over a decade. It's one of my favorite action figures of all time. But for a 6 to 7 inch action figure, my money is on this McFarlane version. The sculpting is great, doesn't have those absurd diapers that plague a lot of the McFarlane releases. I think the face sculpt also looks great. The paint on his face is great as well. My only gripe is the gold paint used on the symbol and belt. That is an inaccuracy that could have been easily avoided. And the fact is, McFarlane knows how to do this right, because that film Batman Through the Years set features this same sculpt, but with more accurate paint applications. And that move brings me right to why I think this set is both McFarlane's best and worst DC release so far. McFarlane has been playing this game of the first version of a sculpt that is inferior to a later version for a while now. And in the case of this set, it affects both items. The Batmobile is a much better version of a retail release that just hit shelves mere months before this one became available. And the Batman included with this set was immediately made inferior by the Keaton Bats that was included in the Batman Through the Years set. Pair that with the fact that this set was made in limited numbers as an Amazon release, and you've got yourself an absolutely incredible set of toys for a reasonable price that also has a lot of stink associated with it. This is both one of my favorite pickups of the year and one of the most disappointing, which is a shame, because a few changes that were definitely within the control of McFarlane could have made this set one of the greatest Batman toys of all time. If you want to keep watching, check out this video, and until next time, hasta luego and goodbye.